Everybody, здравствуйте всем! Добро пожаловать на вебинар by British-Kazakh Society. Welcome to today's British-Kazakh Society webinar, which is on the Kazakh schools, the power of pride and contribution subject. And this is our second webinar related to Kazakh schools and education in Kazakh schools run by British-Kazakh Society Educational Group. So I am Mira Abdrakhmanova, one of the directors in British-Kazakh Society, and I'll be chairing and moderating today's webinar by myself. We have one speaker and presenter today, Mr. Adam Seldon, the teacher from the UK, who will run his presentation to begin with, and in the end we will have questions and answers session. If people will have questions, they can write them into questions and Q&A section here on the Zoom. And we will read them out in the end and give an opportunity to Adam to respond. So Adam Seldon is a teacher from the UK. He has been teaching for the last 10 years in London in state and private sector. He's currently working on this interesting research and writing a book called Around the World in 80 Schools. So he visited over 50 schools in 20 countries lately, and mainly to learn about how different cultures, contexts, and schools approach education. So his key questions include asking what the purpose of education is, how they prepare the young people for the future, and what makes a good school. So as part of his research, Adam visited also Kazakhstan, where he went to Saginov and Ms. Janslu. We helped Adam from British-Kazakh Society to arrange visit to schools in Astana. He went to 4 schools in Astana, 3 of them state schools, like number 38, number 91, number 101, and also he went to visit a private school, Riviera International Secondary School by Quantum. So today we asked Adam to share his views and observations and opinion. He has after visiting schools in Kazakhstan. So Adam, I pass the word to you, and in the end we will have questions and answers session. I will just explain it in Russian as well briefly. Дорогие участники, сейчас мы передадим слово нашему учителю из Англии, который последние 10 лет преподавал в школах в Лондоне, в частных и государственных школах, и сегодня он работает над очень интересным проектом, который называется, значит, «80 школ вокруг света», и в рамках этого проекта он посетил 50 школ в 20 странах, включая Казахстан, прошлой осенью, и спасибо большое профессорам из Евразийского национального университета в Астане. Они нам помогли, мистер Кайрат Сагинов и мисс Жанслу помогли нам организовать Адаму визиты в 4 школы в Астане, из них 3 государственные, 38-я, 91-я, 101-я, и также частная школа Riviera International Quantum. Вот, и сейчас я передаю слово Адаму, он презентует свою презентацию, и в конце у нас вы можете задать вопросы, есть такой значок, вот вопросы и ответы в Zoom здесь. Здесь можно написать свои вопросы, и в конце я их зачитаю Адаму, и мы дадим слово Адаму ответить на эти вопросы. Окей, Адам, the word to you.
Great, thank you, Mira. Just Mira, just to check in terms of our participants, I would just speak slower than normal, and that should be fine. Yeah, okay. Will you jump in and translate at any point, or no need?
As far as I know, today's participants, they all speak or understand English. So if you just speak slower, maybe it'll be...
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Great. And you can see my screen all okay? Great. Okay. So thank you, Mira, for that warm introduction and that overview of me and my project around the world in 80 schools. Thank you as well to the British-Kazakh Society for being incredibly helpful with the project. You know, as Mira mentioned, I had the opportunity to visit 4 different schools and that could not have happened without the British-Kazakh Society. So I'm hugely grateful. And as Mira mentioned, I've been to 20 countries so far, and not every country has such a welcoming and helpful organization with links to the UK and Kazakhstan, and the host country even. So very grateful to BKS for the amazing help. But whether David and Mira and co, but also the people in Kazakhstan as well. So thank you very much. I just wanted to emphasize that. And then last thank you is just thank you for coming. Really grateful for you all to come, and I'm looking forward to sharing some things that I learned, but also it would be great to get some questions from you guys as well, and to maybe get some thoughts as well about what you've learned, and what hopefully this my presentation maybe gets you thinking about. So I'm just going to, that's the title slide. I'm going to go on to the next slide, which is sort of key themes and learnings. So 5 key themes and learnings that I got from my 4 school visits in Astana in autumn. So institutional pride, so pride in the institution, national pride, project-based learning and extracurricular learning, environmental concern, and hospitality is the last one. And I think these reflections are partly based on what I saw in Kazakhstan itself, but also maybe partly based on what I saw was different to the UK or unique compared to the UK, but also maybe really stood out compared to the other countries that I've been to so far. Just so we're aware, it's quite a photo-heavy presentation, and then I'll sort of speak over the text, which I think hopefully is a more engaging way compared to you having to read text, lots of text. So the first one is institutional pride. So this is me in school, I think 38, this one is. So this is a state school in Astana. And it was interesting, lots of the schools having the number next to the school name, which I think links to the Soviet era, which you can get in the UK, but helps make it very sort of clear, and you know the number of the school you're in. But yeah, it's institutional pride. So the pride that all the schools had in their institution, they felt they belonged there. They felt their institution was doing important work. They felt they felt there was bonds within the institution as well, between the different people. So this is a photo of me and the headmaster, the principal of the school. And we're outside we're next to a statue there, which I believe, if I remember correctly, I think is the statue of one of the founding headmasters of the school, I believe. And it was interesting. I didn't have a photo of it, but we also, at one point, whilst the head teacher was showing me one of the main function rooms, the main rooms for hosting, he pointed to the helmet, a white sort of builder's helmet. And this was the helmet used 25 years previously, when the school that laid the first foundation stone of the school. And I thought it was quite interesting that they sort of kept that piece of institutional history to make sure there's a connection to the past, and to make sure that they were keeping their institutional roots in the front of their mind as they went forward and delivered their day-to-day education. And I think, it's one of those things that maybe sometimes schools sort of forget about their roots and their origins. But I thought it's quite a powerful reminder of the origins of the school, and how those origins are both physical origins and bricks and mortar, but also there are sort of intellectual origins about the school's philosophy and the school's approach. And by having that link to your origins and your past, you can make sure there is that continuity in ideas and approach to the school. I think additionally, there was that sense of institutional pride, and I think that can bind people together, and it can sort of set a set a path forward that everyone's on. I think sometimes schools can feel very focused on the self. I go to schools to get my exams to mean that I can get a university and go to a job. Whereas, in the Kazakh schools, I thought there was a sense of common purpose. And you can get that common purpose partly by being invested and caring about the institution. So that's the first point I wanted to make, which is about institutional pride. So second one, got a few more photos, was about national pride. I saw 4 schools, 3 were government or state schools, and 1 was private schools. 1 was a private school even. And all of the state and government schools really showed national pride in Kazakhstan. And that was, shown in a range of ways, such as music. Students here are playing the Donbass. Mira, correct me if I'm wrong there. The Dombra.
It's Dombra, yes.
Yeah, Dombra. Yeah, Dombra. Yeah, so they're playing the Dombra, and there was an incredibly warm welcome, very sort of high quality in the production, and that was lovely to see that kind of warm welcome. And obviously, there's the musical pride, but as you can tell as well, there's the traditional dress, which is really nice to see. Here's also some more manifestations of national pride. This is some Kazakh food and drink, which was fantastic. Very, very tasty. I was given lots of food. Some of it I was not used to. I think in a different school I was given horse meat, which was interesting. National identity and national pride. Felt really a privilege to be able to get such a sort of warm hospitality and to learn about the national culture. And I was even given by one of the schools. This is, I think, maybe the second or third state school I went to. I was given a whip and a lovely jacket and a hat. And I'm in front of a yurt there, and I met the student council in the yurt. But it was lovely seeing that national pride, and it was very interesting learning about Kazakhstan. And as far as I'm aware, you have many nationalities. Coming from historical developments, mean you had lots of different nationalities who have come into Kazakhstan, and I was told how there is the space to celebrate those different nationalities, but also there's also an emphasis on sharing the Kazakh nationality and the different parts of your identity. And I thought that was sort of interesting to see because, again, there's that binding mechanism between students and between teachers as well. And there's that sense of you could have your own particular more local identity, or maybe you came from a different country in a border country, but we also do share a national identity here. And so it was interesting how that was a binding mechanism for the students. And I also think that sense of national identity, and I think in Britain, for example, we often do schools often do celebrate, because Britain as well has lots of quite a high immigrant population historically over time. So you have people from Africa or Asia, and often schools might celebrate the difference between students, but they might not necessarily celebrate the commonality. And perhaps that's a missed opportunity to share things that really bind students, such as a national identity, so the clothes, the music, the food. And I think that was sort of powerful to see and to learn from. And ultimately, I think you can have it can be maybe tough in a polarized world, but I think you can have different identities. You can perhaps come from a different country and you're that identity, but you are also, for example, Kazakh, or you are also British, and it's not a case of either or. So I thought that was interesting to see. And that linked into and also by having that national focus, I think it also maybe helps you to think about a little bit more than just myself or me, it maybe encourages you to think, well, how are you going to contribute beyond just getting a job, for example, which is important, but how else are you going to contribute to society more widely? And that was, I think, having that national identity can help with that. This was a private school that I went to, and this was again very warm and very welcoming hosts. Particularly impressive facilities in this school. But I did notice something that maybe can happen in schools in different countries. I think sometimes with a private school, because the parents are paying, there can be more of an emphasis on the individual self-advancement and maybe less of an awareness of the collective and looking outward and thinking about others. So I found perhaps the private school had less of that collective aspect where they were looking beyond just themselves. But that's not unique to Kazakhstan. I think that's a feature of quite a few countries as well that I visited. It was really interesting to see the project-based learning. So I was shown in lots of schools incredible projects that students had worked on over many weeks and months. And there might be science-based projects or technology-based projects, usually in small groups or individually. And they showed them to me. And they were often very high quality. And the students spoke about them with great passion. Sometimes the guides had to stop the student from speaking because we need to sort of move on. Because the student was being very enthusiastic, and it's one of those, in the world of education, it can be cause debate. Projects, is it actually a good use of time? Should students maybe be learning from the teacher rather than spending lots of time on their own project? Is there, if you make a project, does it take too much time compared to the actual learning that occurs? But I was very impressed with the quality of the projects. And I think it did have that real world application, perhaps. And lots of the world of work has projects or things that you need to come up with an idea, and then you have to create it, and then you have to improve it, and then you have to get feedback on it. So I was quite impressed with the quality of the projects. And it's a great way to get motivated about learning if you're creating something yourself rather than just doing something. And it was lovely as well, actually, to see how, as well as being shown student projects, I was also shown some teacher projects. So teachers, as part of improving their teacher practice, had showed me these displays of projects they are working on to do with improving their teaching practice. And that was really good to see. And they spoke with great pride in one of the schools. They said they were influenced by a Japanese approach in terms of create a teacher-led project. And that was good to see them really thinking about how can I improve my teaching to better the education of my students. It was great as well to see they were often using quite cutting-edge technology as well, so really preparing students for the future. This one is not my own photo. This links to a geography lesson that I saw with some older students, I think grade 11 or grade 12. They were doing presentations on environmental concerns in Kazakhstan, so describing the nature of the problem, and then giving solutions to it. And it was interesting because although they were in an examination year, the teacher had decided to still do this because it linked to the exam content, but it was about getting interested in a particular topic area of the examination content and then sharing it with students and learning from other students. And it was very good to see because the students presented well, but they also listened to each other very well, and they were very engaged. They genuinely cared a lot about the environment and about the future of the country, and aware of geology and biodiversity and the atmosphere. And I sort of reflected that I think in Britain lots of students would not have that genuine passion. I think they might care about maybe some things about politics, for example, but I was quite impressed with how outward looking the students were. and how thinking about society in the future they were. So this particular photo, and Mira, I'm going to need your help again. This is the nuclear testing site area,
Palatinsk, Semipalatinsk.
yeah,
Semipalatinsk, yeah.
Semi-Plansky, yeah. So this was really interesting learning a bit about this and the tests that happened here, and then the sort of long-term challenges of those test sites. And I asked students, you seem to really care about these environmental concerns, and I'm a teacher, and I think I'm quite a good judge if they were pretending, if they were if they were just they had to do it and they had to show some interest for their presentation, but it wasn't real. But they did seem to genuinely care. And I asked one student, why do you all care so much? And he commented on how, in Kazakhstan, we're encouraged to think about the future, we're encouraged to think about our family, but we're encouraged to think about future generations as well. And we're encouraged to not just think of ourselves, but of our contribution to society in the future. And I was, quite impressed with that desire to look outward and think long term. And it was very unselfish. It was very me. I think in the West, sometimes the education systems can be very tilted to encourage a certain selfish focus. But it was wonderful to see the students really genuinely caring and the sort of reasoning behind that. So that was great. I think last area is hospitality. The hospitality from all the Kazakh people that I met, whether in schools or whether the professors from the Eurasian University, was really incredible. We got to go on we were taken on a tour of Astana, which was really interesting to see the developments of a really interesting, unique city. We were taken to some great places to eat and try some Kazakh food. And we were really looked after. This is a photo of my fiance and Mira's mother, Professor Janslu. And yeah, it was definitely, as I maybe mentioned towards the start of my introduction, I've been to many countries, and when I sort of look back, Kazakhstan is definitely one of those where the people were really proud of their country. They were keen to share it. They were keen for visitors, and they were really incredibly welcoming and warm, and that was very nice. I think unfortunately sometimes from a Western British perspective, sometimes you have misperceptions of countries, and for example, there was that awful film Borat, so 20 years ago now. But often, I might tell a British friend or two, we're going to Kazakhstan, and they were like, "Oh, will it be like Borat?" And it's a comedy film, but in some ways, it's actually not very funny because it can sort of create a perception of a country in Western people's minds. So I thought it was really nice to sort of, and the other aspect of Kazakhstan you often think of, again, from a Western point of view, is Soviet Union, one of the stans. They were just under sort of Soviet control for many decades, rather than the place of its own sort of cultural and distinctive lineage. I went to Almaty before Astana, which has got an incredibly sort of long-lasting cosmopolitan history. So it was, it's very interesting as well, just beyond the school visits, just to see a country rich in history and culture and natural beauty, but also physical beauty in terms of the cities. And the wonderful contrast between Almaty and Astana was striking. So those are the sort of, I didn't want to go on for too long, but those are sort of 20 minutes or so of reflections. I haven't said everything I want to say, but perhaps some things I could also might come up in the questions. But yeah, that's the end of my bit. And thank you for listening. And as I said, it's always great to get the questions from, I think Miriam might have some questions, but also it'd be great to get some questions from participants.
Thank you, Adam. Very interesting. Yeah, Kazakhstan is quite famous for its hospitality. For Kazakh people, it's very important when we have guests We show our best. We must feed them, overfeed actually sometimes. So that's not surprising what you found when you went to schools. But I'm very grateful again for our schools and our people, for the fact that they dedicated their time, made their efforts, energy to welcome you, to show you around. And I'm very, very happy. And a big thank you to all the schools in Astana, and again to professors from Eurasian National University for helping with that. Now we can go into a questions and answers session. If anyone has questions, they can type them in Q&A section of the Zoom here. But let me have a look if we have any questions now. No questions so far. Вы можете задать свои вопросы в секции, разделе Q&A. Вот здесь кнопка есть в Zoom, если у вас есть вопросы к Адаму. We have one comment from Ronald. Thank you for the presentation, Adam. Very interesting. You made a few comparisons between your observations in Kazakhstan and the UK or West. I'm curious if you can make some observations between Kazakhstan and some other countries where you visited schools, Adam.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's good question. I mean, in terms of the immediate area, I went to Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan as well as sort of countries near to Kazakhstan. I found Uzbekistan maybe. In Uzbekistan, I went to a private school and an international school and a state school, government school. I think Uzbeks as well were for us very good hosts and made an effort. I found Uzbekistan maybe a bit more controlled in terms of the processes. And perhaps, yeah, so that was a little bit more controlled in terms of what I sort of could and couldn't see in the schools. I think Uzbekistan, there was also a similarity with the national aspects in terms of linking to their culture and history. Perhaps there was a little bit more focus on education as a means to advance the economy of the country. I think was there in Kazakhstan, and obviously a good education system is essential to advance the economy of a country and further it. But maybe there was a bit more focus of that in Uzbekistan. There was a great comment by a Kazakh school teacher about how, and I was asking him why he does what he does, and he was emphasizing how it was to sort of create future leaders of Kazakhstan. So there was that sense of a public service mission in Kazakhstan, which was maybe less present in Uzbekistan. I think I'm always slightly cautious of comparisons because I think, or cautious to make too strong an argument with comparisons, because I think compared to Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, maybe I got less of a deeper immersion in the schools. But that's one observation. I think looking to other parts of the world, I think maybe comparing Kazakhstan to maybe some of the East Asian countries in terms of the use of technology in some of the East Asian countries, in terms of especially around sort of robotics and making sure students have the chance to really engage in sort of the engineering and creative aspects of education was a sort of a possible sort of comparison there. I think as well in parts of Japan, they also had quite a lot of focus on projects, like there were in the Kazakh schools that I went to. I'd say possibly in East Asian schools there was more of a focus on the teacher being the fountain of the knowledge and the leader of the learning, rather than it being as self-directed I think in Kazakhstan it was a bit more project-based, presentation-based, student-led, whereas in East Asia it was, it's funny, in part you might associate Japan with great technology, which there was, as I mentioned, but also in lots of Japanese classrooms it's still white chalk and a green board and very teacher-led, but it's arguably effective. And I think it's just slight tangent, but I think in lots of parts of the world there was a desire to sort of move on from the teacher being the center of learning. However, some countries or schools struggle to do that as effectively. I think in an age of AI and increasing technology, I mean, my view would be that the teacher is still going to be very, very important. So I think it's about how do you leverage the teacher with the students rather than how do you hugely reduce or even replace the teacher. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Adam. We have another question from Tumar. She's asking, good morning. May I know when your book will be published? And is it part of your research in some university or is it a private project that you were interested in?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. It's due to be published next year. Finishing it this year and then publishing it next year. The precise scope of the book needs to be determined a bit in terms of how far I cater it to the people who are educational professionals, so a more practical book, versus how far it's a book which maybe caters to perhaps people like yourselves who may be interested in education, society, but aren't necessarily teachers themselves, for instance. I'd probably favour the latter, but that slightly depends on the precise sort of thing I need to work out with publishers. In terms of how it's being, the backing and the process, it's very much self-driven rather than linked to a university. And the reason for that is because I wanted the autonomy to sort of do it in my own way. But the other reason for that is, it's not part of like a PhD or a piece of university research, but partly that's deliberate because that can quite limit the kind of question focuses, or it can limit the style of the writing, and can limit the scope of who's going to engage with it. So that has come being a bit of a challenge sometimes, but I think that's so it's self-driven, but it is being publisher backed.
Thank you, Adam. Andrew, more sort of comment here. I'm always pleasantly surprised at the high quality of education in the state schools in Kazakhstan, but less so in the private schools. In particular, the state schools keep strictly to the national curriculum, but in the private schools, they seem to do what they like, and so there are many gaps in the pupils' learning. Thank you, Andrew, for the comment. It's more of a comment rather than maybe if you have anything to say about that, Adam. Otherwise, we can continue to the next question.
I don't know. I think it can be a challenge in state versus private schools, not just in Kazakhstan, but in other countries as well, in that some of the private schools have more of an international outlook, and that can maybe appeal to parents who want their child to have an international outlook. But I know what you mean about it seemed the curriculum and the provision was much clearer in the state school compared to the private school, where it was in a bit more in a state of flux, perhaps. I think they were aiming towards EIB, but it hadn't been confirmed yet. So but then again, if you do get it right with the private angle, it can maybe be better for students, but it can be. I think it's a challenge. I think, yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. We have another comment and question from Tumar. She's saying, thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting to look at the Kazakh schools from the third perspective. In your observations, do you think there were any challenges that Kazakh schools were facing, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I think is a challenge related to consistency of getting high quality teachers into the classroom. I think that can be a challenge. That seemed to be a challenge. I think the teachers that I saw there were really fantastic and very committed, but I think that seemed to be a challenge of making sure there was that consistency of getting high quality teachers in for, you know, growing economy, growing population, but that's not unique. I don't think to Kazakhstan. That was a trend in other countries as well. I think the second challenge identified was about the two changes, the sort of first change and the second change. I think that's the term that was used, where there were students came in for the sort of morning and lunch session, and then a new set of students came in for the for the afternoon and early evening session. Was that the term, Mira? To change? I think that was that. Yeah.
We have you normally, as far as I remember from my times when I went to Kazakhstan, we have a morning session for the certain classes. They come in the morning,
Yeah.
and then from let's say from 8 till 2 or 1, and then the other afternoon session, the other class, in order to split, because you know, not to mix up too many people together.
Yeah. So I think I was amazed at how well the school handled it, and so did the students. It's one of those things where in the British system, if you told kids, you know, you had to suddenly kind of split the day, or staff, they might find it very annoying. But the students and staff were fine with it. I suppose maybe some of them thought it would be better in the long term if you could have, you know, slightly bigger, more space or slightly more staff to enable there to be one day rather than sort of two half days. Again, not a challenge unique to Kazakhstan, but that's just something that was commented on as a challenge.
Okay, thank you, Adam. We have another question from Zamir. He's saying, how can we work with BKS? Probably it's more question to me related to rather than to Adam, because Adam is not a BKS British-Kazakh Society staff, so I can answer this question. In British-Kazakh Society is a non-for-profit organization, non-commercial organization, which was created many years ago, I think in beginning of 2000. And the main objective is to develop a relationship between Kazakhstan and Britain in different areas, not only education, business education. We do run a lot of webinars, we do run a lot of events offline as well, networking events, events on different subjects. We do have members of the society. Anyone can become a member of the society, whether it is an organization or an individual. You can find more information on our website, British-Kazakh Society website, which I can share here later in the chat. And we welcome anyone. We always welcome our new members to the British-Kazakh Society. There are a lot of advantages of being a member of British-Kazakh Society, because you don't miss any of the notifications, you don't miss webinars, you don't miss events you are interested in. We run events in Kazakhstan and in the UK. With the support of our members, and like Adam, for example, in Adam's case, he approached us when he was planning his trips to Kazakhstan. He approached British-Kazakh Society because it's a official formal organization who could help, and it was a good starting point. And he wrote us, and we looked into possibilities to help him to organize his trip, and visits. So yeah, please let us know, Zamir or anyone else here today who would be interested to join British-Kazakh Society as a member, or even if you are not a member, if you have any questions, please do feel free to write us all the contacts on the website. I think I have another a question from Kamar. She's from school number 38, the one of your schools you visited, Adam. They wanted to ask a question, and I can see she's still writing, but for some reason she cannot write in Zoom, and she's writing me in WhatsApp now. So, Kamar, I'm waiting for your question. One second. They wanted to thank you, Adam, as well for your visit, for your presentation today, and they have a question, and they are still writing. Just one second.
They took some good photos, so thank you to them for giving me some of those in there.
So those photos were shared with you, or
Some of them were mine, and some of them were taken by. What did you say? School? Which school did you say?
number 38?
Yeah, some of them was from. Some of them I think were school 38. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see she's typing. Kamar, would you like to? Sorry, I can see she's typing, but still doesn't come through. Meanwhile, I have a couple of questions from our director, David Hardy, who is now online, but due to some internet issues, he couldn't be chairing the meeting, the webinar today. So his question was, are the subjects taught in Kazakh and British schools similar, or are there any significant differences in your opinion?
I think, as far as I could tell, there was some similarities. I think in lots of the world, there is a certain following of this sort of standard disciplines in terms of humanity, sciences, maths. But I think maybe what was distinct was perhaps sometimes the method of delivery. Whether that's perhaps more presentations in the Kazakh schools and also more of the project-based approaches in the Kazakh schools. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Are the teaching methods, in your opinion, were used similar to or different to between UK and Kazakhstan?
Yeah, I think there were certainly some similarities. There was yeah, some similarities with, we can take it for granted, but table layout, pen and paper, all that's quite similar. I think there are certain unique things like and I think it was in school 38. I very much liked how the teacher started the lesson. There was, I think all students sort of put their hands together, and she said a few words related to how, let's have a great lesson together. Let's have some sort of good vibes and good spirits. Let's learn well together. And that was sort of a very nice sort of start to the lesson that really it kind of linked to that theme I've been touching on about, being a team and let's kind of contribute all together for the sake of it, everyone. That was nice. She always had a fantastic rod, which is very good to sort of point at students. I like that as well.
Yeah, I remember those from my times as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Ainura from school number 91, she would like to know, was there anything about Kazakh schools that you didn't like or you couldn't understand?
Oh, that's a good question. think School 91 was the school where the teacher said that great comment about the creating future leaders of tomorrow. I think that was School 91. I would say that with the book, it's more about what can we learn from other countries rather than what's to criticize. I'm very aware of schools are. I'm a teacher. They're hard places to work in, demanding, important, and I'm also a foreigner being hosted. So I'm always conscious that it's not really my place to criticize, especially because I'm only in schools for not that long a length of time. I think perhaps in the private school, but it's not just unique to the Kazakh private school. There's a bit more focus on, resources, not human resources, but kind of things looking nice or trying to get money in to build a new facility like this or that. And I think, it's the human resources that really matter in a good education. And the ideas matter more than the sort of physical resources or the physical things. So, but I don't think that's unique to private schools in Kazakhstan. I think that can happen in lots of schools in the UK as well and abroad as well. So I think it's I don't want to. I think it's unique to Kazakhstan, but that's just something that I noticed in the private school that I went to.
Hello, Mira. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, Adam.
Oh, nice to see you.
I am Gokhar, as you remember from school.
Yes, my amazing translator.
Thank you very
and
much.
a guide for the schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, Adam, I want to congratulate you on your remarkable, amazing, we can say, journey around the world, like different schools. So, of course, we are really happy to welcome you in our site, in our country, and to be the part of your global project, like a spot in your global path, we can say. So wish you continuing success, and of course, that's really inspiring work you're currently doing. So, and my question is, we can't wait. What do you take next? What will be the next of your just continuing work? Thank you.
What's the next place I'm going to, or?
I mean, so you are currently visiting the schools, or you have just finished that project, Adam?
When do I finish it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this year, end of this year.
And what will be the next step?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to go back into being a teacher and a leader in a school. Yeah.
Fine.
So I'm keen to. The research and writing is great, and it's a real privilege to be able to do, and to meet such fantastic people as yourself and go to such great schools such as your school. But I do slightly miss the the kids and the classroom. So I'm still keen to go back into the classroom, at least for the time being. But at the same time, I think there's certain things that I've experienced and learned that mean that although I do want to be attached to a school, I still want to contribute to wider dialogue, whether national but also more global, about thinking about what makes good education, what makes a good school. So although I do want to go back into schools, I kind of need to. I do need to earn some money, some proper money again. I do want to keep in touch with and generate hopefully more discussion in the UK, but also abroad. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your answer. Wishing you continuing success.
Thank you.
In your great job. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mira.
Thank you, Kamar. Thank you, Adam. We have one more question from Tumar. She's saying, thank you for the answers. What would you say about the language skills in Kazakh schools? There is like a 3-language policy. Did everyone speak good English?
Yeah, good question. The English I was really impressed with. Not everyone could as well as each other, but it was definitely there. And obviously there's the Russian, the Kazakh. So as far as I could tell, it seemed really, well embedded, work in progress, but it's definitely been a trend across different countries across the world that English does seem to be desired and useful. And some parts of the world still do struggle a bit, like Japan, for example, actually that has less good English, perhaps. So yeah, for rightly or wrongly, English does seem to be a useful global language, and students seem to be, and staff seem to be doing well on it. And I don't know, in some ways, the students seem to have more better at it than the staff. I don't know if that was perhaps a policy change that happened, that there was more English being taught now compared to when the teachers were at school.
Yeah, that's the case, Adam. I think you're right. We all speak our native language, Kazakh, which is a state language, and we do speak Russian from the year of post-Soviet, being a post-Soviet country. And also, yeah, English is being quite, I think, widely taught and used nowadays rather than it used to be in the past. And the last question from David Hardy, our director: if UK schools open up branches overseas, what are your views on the syllabus and mode of teaching? Should they be identical to the UK, or should they be more sort of adapted to local culture, history, and so on, in your opinion?
Should they be adapted to the UK, or should they? Well, I didn't really see that many UK branches of schools in Kazakhstan. I have seen some abroad. I think there is something in the UK approach that has some sort of some popularity, or some sort of judgment that it's effective. So I think, like, house systems where students belong in houses can be quite a good thing to have. I do think they do need to be aware of where the culture they operate in. I probably think some of the strongest ones I've been to do maybe have a slight UK angle in terms of some of the approaches, but also they are aware of where their students come from. And often some of the UK school branches have very international faculties and international students. So I think you do need to, be aware of what a UK approach can offer, but also being cognizant of, the needs of the culture you operate in, and also the cultural sensitivities that you need to, respect and be aware of. But I think not identical. I think having that distinctive UK aspect, but also being catered and tailored to within the context you're in. Yes.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, our time is almost over, almost 1 hour that we are running this webinar. Thank you very much for all the for your presentations, for your time, for your observations, and thank you to all the participants for active participation and questions. Really appreciate that. I have a couple of announcements to make from my end. As a British-Kazakh Society, we have our next education group webinar will be on the 14th of May. It will be about quality assurance and different models of British-Kazakh university collaboration. The next event we also have in our pipeline is on the 4th of June. We'll be hosting summer drinks reception in London with the main purpose of networking and with a beautiful view. So welcome to join those who can make it. I recommend to register with British-Kazakh Society to get news, updates, and announcements. Like I said, we always welcome new British-Kazakh Society members. Please check out our website. And then also, yeah, thank you once again to all the participants. Thank you, Adam. Thank you to Alijan, our technical IT moderator, let's say, today behind the scenes, and for organizing everything. Yeah, if you have any feedback or comments or questions, you can always write to us. And yeah, just for your information, the webinar was recorded. It will be available on our website as well. So you can also go back and check it if you register with us. Thank you. And thank you, Adam. We'll wait for your book.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mira, Alijan, David, and the schools in Kazakhstan and the university in Kazakhstan. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. It was great to collaborate and build bridges between Britain and Kazakhstan. And thank you everyone for coming today, for listening, and for the great questions. It's been a really good hour, so thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.